Coming up today, the two Koreas are set to hold working-level talks. It's hoped they can be the springboard for cross-border governmental talks down the road. Korea will bid farewell to former President Kim Youngsam this afternoon at his state funeral in Seoul. Plus, Russia is sending an air defense missile system to Syria to deter Turkey after the downing of one of its warplanes. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, November 26th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, South and North Korea are scheduled to hold working-level talks this Thursday, aimed at laying the groundwork for high-level talks that could help mend their strained ties. The two sides are set to meet on the north side of the truce village of Panmunjom on Thursday morning, with 3 representatives from each side. Kim Youngsam, head of South Korea's Unification Ministry's Special Office for Inter-Korean Dialogue, and Hwang Chul, a senior North Korean official from the Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of Korea, will be leading the talks. It remains to be seen whether the two sides will see eye to eye on details for the high-level talks, including the level of officials to attend, the agenda and schedule. Thursday's talks are in line with an agreement reached on August 25th, in which the two sides pledged to accelerate government talks to improve inter-Korean relations and diffuse military tension across the border. Koreans from all walks of life have been continuing to pay their respects to late President Kim Youngsam. Political figures from around the world have also been sending their condolences ahead of today's state funeral. Park Ji-won reports.
Tens of thousands of mourners continue to visit Seoul National University Hospital, paying their respects to the now deceased former leader Kim Youngsam. In the past 4 days, over 25,000 people have visited the hospital, and nearly 100,000 have paid their respects at various altars nationwide. Former President Chun Doo-hwan was one of those. He paid his respects on Wednesday. A pro-democracy activist, Kim was put under house arrest for about 2 years during Chun's grip on power in early 1980s. France's ambassador to Korea, Fabien Penon, also visited, leaving a note saying that a heroic fighter for democracy and a friend of France has been lost. In China, at an altar in the Korean embassy, China's Vice Foreign Minister Liu Jianmin paid his respects on behalf of the Chinese government. Over in Japan, former Prime Ministers Tomichi Murayama and Moihiro Hosokawa visited the Korean embassy Wednesday in Tokyo, offering their condolences and remembering the late president. Meanwhile, it is unclear that because of health concerns, if President Park Geunhye will attend the state funeral. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
So, as we heard, tens of thousands of mourners have been visiting altars not only in Korea but around the world to pay their respects to former President Kim Youngsam. A state funeral for Kim will take place from 2 p.m. Korea time on this Thursday. For an overview of the day's events, Shin Se-min reports.
A 5-day period of national mourning will come to a close on Thursday after late President Kim Youngsam's state funeral at the National Assembly. Proceedings will be similar to the grand funeral, or 국장 as it was called, that was given to late former President Kim Dae-jung in 2009. Kim Youngsam will be the first person given a state funeral under the State Funeral Act since it was revised in November of last year. Funeral music will announce the beginning of the ceremony, and the hearse will make its way to the ceremony hall. A memorial altar will be set up in front of the National Assembly, and the bereaved family and the chief funeral commissioners will be seated in front of the row. The ceremony will begin with a silent tribute, along with a reading of Kim's achievements in life. The eulogy will be delivered by former National Assembly Speaker Kim Soo-han, who was part of the Sangdo faction led by Kim Youngsam. Protestant Christian, Catholic, and Buddhist rites will be performed at the funeral. The state funeral will come to an end with floral tributes and incense burning by Kim's family and diplomatic delegations. The funeral procession will depart from the National Assembly and will take a final trip around Kim's home in Sangdo-dong in Dongjakgu District on his way to the Seoul National Cemetery. Kim Youngsam will be laid to rest by other former presidents, Lee Seung-man and Kim Dae-jung, Korea's first and the 15th president. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And just a reminder that we'll be bringing you live coverage of Kim Youngsam's state funeral right here on Arirang TV from 2 p.m. Korea time. Now, in world news, the United States is calling for calm between Turkey and Russia following the downing this week of a Russian warplane near the Syrian border. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said both sides should not allow the incident to escalate tensions between their two countries or in Syria. Now, sounding a defiant note after the downing, Russia sent an advanced missile system to Syria on Wednesday to protect its jets and pledged its air force would keep flying missions near Turkish airspace. Russia's defense minister says the S-400 missile system will be stationed at an airbase from where Russia is conducting its aerial bombing campaign in Syria. Now, more details are emerging about the downing of the plane. The rescued Russian co-pilot claims there were no warnings before Turkey shot down his plane. Turkey says it issued several warnings before shooting it down. The pilot also maintained his aircraft was flying over Syrian territory and did not violate Turkish airspace. Pope Francis has arrived in Kenya for a three-nation tour of Africa. The Kenyan president and massive crowds welcomed the pontiff upon his arrival in Nairobi. Giving a speech shortly after his arrival, the Pope called for ethnic and religious reconciliation between Christians and Muslims in Africa. Around a third of Kenya's 45 million people are Catholic. Pope Francis' visit will also see him travel to Uganda and the Central African Republic, which has been hit by Christian-Muslim conflict in recent years. Now, more and more worrisome reports are emerging that show global temperatures have reached an unprecedented level, breaking records by huge margins. The World Meteorological Organization, says the global average surface temperature to the end of October this year was 0.73 degrees Celsius above the 1961 to 1990 average. Now, the organization also said this year will reach the symbolic milestone of a 1 degree Celsius warmer than pre-industrial period of 1880 to 1899. The WMO says the rise is due to a combination of global warming and the El Niño oceanic phenomenon, which is expected to continue all the way through next year. The report comes just a week ahead of a landmark UN climate change conference in Paris. This is where world leaders will try, at least, to reach a universal agreement on climate with the aim of keeping global warming below 2 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels. And President Park Geun-hye will travel to Europe this weekend for that UN summit on climate change in the French capital. She will also be in the Czech Republic for a string of other summits. Our Hwang Sang-hee has the details.
When she attends the opening of the UN Climate Change Conference in Paris on November 30th, President Park will underscore South Korea's efforts to fight climate change. This includes its ambitious goal to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 37%.
As a member of the Major Economies Forum that leads climate change talks, Korea will be a bridge between advanced and developing countries for the smooth launch of a new climate change agreement.
On her final day in Paris, President Park will speak at the UNESCO headquarters and meet with its secretary, Irina Volkova. Next stop, the Czech Republic. Here she'll meet the Czech president, hold meetings with the prime minister and lawmakers, and attend a business forum. The presidential office of Geunhye said the visit is an opportunity to upgrade Korea's strategic partnership with the Czech Republic and strengthen bilateral cooperation. President Park will also attend her first meeting with the Visegrad, a regional economic community of the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary, all deemed the fastest-growing European Union nations.
There will be in-depth discussions on cooperation in future growth engines such as science, technology, and health and medical treatment, as well as opportunities for Korean companies to participate in state infrastructure projects in the 4 European nations.
The trip comes just 6 days after returning from a 10-day tour that took her to Turkey, the Philippines, and Malaysia. But the presidential office says the Paris meeting is something that the president cannot miss, since leaders will be adopting a historic agreement on climate change. As for her trip to Prague, it's expected to be an opportunity to pioneer a blue ocean in diplomacy. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, a new nuclear treaty between South Korea and the United States came into effect on Wednesday evening. It replaces the last one that had been in place for the last 40-plus years. The new accord gives Seoul much more freedom than the old one as well, as our Song Ji-son reports.
The chance of enriching uranium or reprocessing spent nuclear fuel is now open for Seoul, although when that can happen may be a bit too far to tell. South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and U.S. Ambassador to Seoul, Mark Lippert, exchanged an MOU on Wednesday, putting the new nuclear cooperation pact into effect. It took both sides 4.5 years to outline the new treaty, as their differences were too big to resolve. With time running out, a separate deal had to be signed to extend the expiration date of the formal deal. The new deal approves Seoul's nuclear research, but will only allow development of nuclear fuel in the future through consultations with the U.S. Seoul wants to enrich uranium to produce nuclear fuel for its fast-growing nuclear energy industry, and also wants to reprocess spent fuel to reduce its mounting nuclear waste, but Washington is concerned over the possibility of proliferation in the Northeast Asia region. The two sides will set up a joint committee to follow up on the way Seoul can reach those goals in collaboration with the U.S.
And today, as a result of this new agreement, the United States and the Republic of Korea are world leaders in civil nuclear energy, and we have a long and productive history of nuclear cooperation compounded by a very bright future.
It was a very tough deal to agree upon but with continued efforts and trust, we came up with a system along with a very creative formula.
As the world's fourth largest nuclear energy producer, with 24 reactors generating a third of its electricity demand, South Korea hopes the deal could give this energy export engine a boost.
And for the enrichment, we wanted to have our own facilities to guarantee to the exporting country that we can provide the uranium fuels. But we could not get those right. But it is because we do not have the proper technology to get this right. So I think we have to develop the according technologies in the next 20 years.
Seoul also believes the ability to create fuel would help it strike more deals to export nuclear reactors overseas. It is currently building 4 reactors in the United Arab Emirates that is worth nearly $20 billion. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
Now, around 30 ruling party lawmakers have proposed an amendment bill aimed at banning the use of masks or other facial coverings during rallies or protests. The move is in response to a massive demonstration earlier this month in Seoul, which turned violent, with some protesters wielding metal pipes and throwing concrete blocks at police. Kim Youngsam reports.
The ruling Saenuri Party submitted its anti-mask law on Wednesday to forbid demonstrators from covering their faces with masks. The ruling bloc wants to ban the use of facial coverings which could prevent identification, especially during illegal demonstrations. They have called for the opposition's support.
If the opposition bloc cooperates in revising this law, then we will be able to better protect people who are willing to undertake peaceful protests and guarantee more freedom of expression. We hope to pass the revised law within this regular session.
The ruling party lawmaker also pointed out that countries such as Germany, France, and the U.S. banned protesters from wearing masks during rallies. If they don't comply with the law, enforcement officers can demand they remove the mask or be fined. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has ridiculed the move.
The ruling party's proposal to revise the anti-mask law should not be used to stop protests, but rather be used to disclose authors who are hiding behind the government's mask to author state history textbooks.
The MPAD opposes the law, saying it infringes on individual freedoms and that penalizing demonstrators for wearing masks, even when there is no clear and present danger of violence, is an abuse of power. Civic groups also said the government's move was nonsense.
It's just nonsense. It's hard to define what a mask is. Scarves, mufflers, masks, hats, and sunglasses. They can all be used to prevent identification. It's just unconstitutional.
However, the ruling bloc and the government is urging the law to be actively reviewed in light of this month's violent rally, where some protesters hid behind their masks. Kim Youngsam, Arirang News.
Well, those are stories we have been following on this cold Thursday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. We also have a smartphone application which you can download by searching for Arirang TV. Have a great day. Goodbye.